All right, before you make an offer on your dream home, you need to know what can make or break that deal. And we're talking about appraisals. I'm Aalia Scott, your local Kenosha realtor.
And I'm Chad Scott, the guy that she's always telling what to do and where to go. If you have any questions for us about buying, selling, investing, or relocating here in the Kenosha area, give us a call, shoot us a text at 262-331-1621, or reach out to us at any of the information down below here in the description of the video. We're happy to help any way that we can.
We help everyone who buys, sells, invests, and relocates every single week. Now, let's get into the video.
So what's worse than falling for a house and getting their offer accepted? Finding out a couple weeks later that the house didn't appraise for value, for contract value. So what exactly is an appraisal, Aalia, and what happens when it doesn't appraise that value?
Okay, so let's define appraise. Appraising a property is based on how much the property is actually worth. A person who is certified, they come in and they look around and they pull comps in the area to that specific property, and it kind of chooses a net worth of the location. And what happens when it doesn't appraise out? Well, there's a couple of different options that you as buyers can do. One is to make that offer in your contract, and a strategy that we do recommend or suggest is the appraisal gap. So let's say a house, you put in the house for a $250,000 offer, but the appraisal comes back at $240,000. And you did the strategy that we would suggest is to do that $10,000 appraisal gap, meaning that you're going to fill in that gap between the actual home worth and the offer. It depends on how desperate you are, okay? So that's one of the strategies. What's another strategy, Chad?
So if you don't have that extra money, that $10,000 in your bank account to fill that appraisal gap, you just simply start negotiations over with the seller. You go back to the seller and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the house didn't appraise. The house only appraised at $240,000. We wrote the offer at $250,000. We need to renegotiate the price. We need to lower the price down to either $240,000 because we as buyers have absolutely no more money to bring to closing because we're completely tapped out after closing costs and lender fees and everything else. Or maybe we can meet you in the middle a little bit. Maybe you as buyers have a couple extra $1,000 and you can bring to the closing table. Maybe you have an extra $2,000 or an extra $5,000. You can meet them in the middle. So the sellers lower the price by $5,000 and you bring an extra $5,000 to the table. So you meet in the middle that way. So there are a few options.
So that's actually another point of the contract. That's another section of the home buying process, is that there's a lot of negotiation, a lot of times that you can actually leave if it doesn't seem fit. If like you start getting that gut feeling that red flags are going, then that is a safe priority to leave that contract. There's different points of the process that you are able to feel safe. It's called the safety parts. Negotiation is a really good tool to use as well. Most sellers are willing to negotiate just to save the sale, and also the buyers too.
Because most sellers don't want to go back to market after the house has been under contract for 2-3 weeks already, because the appraisal usually is one of the last things that happen during the process. The appraisal usually happens, you usually get the appraisal back, I don't know, 7 days before closing. So most sellers don't want to go back to market that late in the process and put the house back on the market, having to say to other buyers, financing fell through, and then to say to the buyers, there's nothing actually wrong with the house, the financing just fell through. Other buyers are like, well, why did your house come back on the market? Is there something wrong with it? They're scratching their heads. There's probably something wrong with it. The seller's hiding something. So sellers are very willing to negotiate with you if the appraisal does fall short for whatever reason. But we're not seeing many appraisals fall short in today's market. It does happen, but not very often. You
know, unfortunately, this is actually one of the points that the deals go south very often, though. So, like he said, nowadays you don't see much of the appraisals falling short. However, this can be a deal breaker for most people.
So why do buyers need an appraisal, Aalia? What is the point of them?
So it actually protects the buyers from overpaying. So let's say that property I was just mentioning, it's $250,000 that you offered, and the appraisal, the home is actually worth $240,000. So down the road, you're not going to be accumulating the equity that you thought. Let's say you spent $250,000 and like in 5 years it's only $300,000. So you're probably wondering like, what the heck did I do? Or how much was this property actually worth? So it kind of gives the information, some more information for the buyers and sellers to have, the better. So it kind of gives the information for the buyers, as mainly the buyers.
Now you may be asking, who does the appraisal? Is it the buyer that does the appraisal? Is it the seller that does the appraisal? So the buyer's lender orders the appraisal through an independent third party. It is somebody that's completely separate from the transaction. It is a separate company that does it. The buyer pays for the appraisal. They're typically $500 to $700 in our area. They go up in price or down in price depending on where you're at in the country. But in our area of Kenosha, northeastern Illinois, they're $500 to $700. It's an independent third company. They send out somebody to look at the house. They go through the house and they pull comps in the area, like Aalia said earlier. They look at past sales, other houses that are in the area that are currently for sale. They look at the finish of the house, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, square footage. They compare each house and they compare those houses to the house that you're under contract on. And they see if your house is actually worth what you're under contract for.
So Chad, can you explain the difference between an inspection and an appraisal?
An inspection is for the buyer to know what is wrong with the house and what the house needs to be done, what needs to be fixed still. An appraisal is just simply the value of the house. An inspection is completely different. People often get this wrong, especially when you have a VA or FHA loan, because the FHA and VA appraiser will go out and they'll do their own inspection, so to speak, where they're looking for safety issues and stuff like peeling paint. And they'll say that stuff needs to be fixed before closing, but that's not really an inspection. They don't go deep. They don't look at like the outlets and see the outlets are reverse polarity. They don't check all the light switches. They don't check all the drawers, make sure those are working. They don't check all the appliances, make sure those are working. They don't climb up on the roof. They don't climb up in the attic. They don't really check the foundation or anything like that. The inspection is much more thorough. It takes a few hours usually to go through the whole house. Whereas an appraisal is just a value of the house.
They come in, they look at the upgrades, the finishes, the room sizes, so that they can have a better understanding for those comps. So that's the difference. They don't go on their hands and knees and try to look in the corners or the closet to look for your deep, dark secrets. They don't. So you can keep those secrets a secret.
Exactly. So conventional versus FHA, VA appraisals. What's the difference? We kind of covered this a little bit, Aalia. Can you go a little more deeper into what those differences are?
So with the FHA, I know for sure that they go and look for the cracks in the paint, because unfortunately with the back in the 60s or even before the 60s, lead was a heavy use in the paint, and for safety issues like loose banisters or railings and stuff, and to make sure that house is not going to fall apart once they grant that final closing for the buyers. What about the conventional? Chad?
So FHA and VA, they look for a lot of safety issues. They don't even so much care about the loose banisters. They just want to make sure that there are banisters in there. Thank you, Abby. She brought Aalia flowers. Isn't that nice of her? They want to make sure that there are banisters or railings on anything that has 3 steps or more. They want to make sure that there's no chipped or peeling paint, because they're afraid that people don't know not to eat paint in today's world. They think that we don't know better. And
I don't know about my 13-year-old though.
We don't know how to tell our children not to eat paint. They check to make sure that there's CO and smoke alarms on each level of the houses, and other general safety issues throughout the house. Conventional loans, appraisers typically don't check for too much. Depending on the lending institution, on the lender that you have, they may check for some structural issues. So if there's a bunch of water in the basement during the appraisal, they may flag that and say this needs to be fixed before closing. If there's a huge hole in the roof while the appraisal is going on, that'll be an issue. If there are obvious structural issues, like the house is leaning towards one side, that'll probably be an issue during the appraisal process. But generally conventional loans, the appraiser just kind of goes in there, looks at the house, make sure that the house is generally habitable, that you can live in there without too many issues, and they do their appraisal, make sure it's at value, and they issue their report.
If you're using FHA or a VA, it's not just about the house and home value. It's about how livable is the house in the eyes of the government. So please be aware if you are going to be looking at an as-is house, which means that's going to have a lot of structural issues or issues that will get flagged by the FHA. I would highly recommend staying away from those.
So how can you as buyers prepare for an appraisal? So make sure that you work with a lender that knows appraisers, local appraisers inside and out. National lenders are okay. We prefer local lenders, obviously, but national lenders often order appraisals from national appraisers, and national appraisers don't know our local market. If we work with a local lender, they'll order appraisals from local appraisers who know our local market and know what home values are in our local market here.
And work with lenders that actually order the appraisals early, because you don't know how long that appraiser has to do, and you don't want to be under the gun to get to closing at the specified date. So make sure your lenders kind of order those appraisals early. Like I said, they're always busy, so you want to make sure to get that in on time.
And make sure when you're putting offers in on a house, make sure that your agent, us, are pulling comps for you to make sure that you're not overpaying for your house. Don't just put offers in based on emotion. Make sure that you're putting offers in based on fact. Don't just put an offer in that's $50,000 over asking price just because you love the house that much. Make sure that you're putting an offer in that's reasonable, that the house will actually appraise for. So you don't want to have to go back and renegotiate with the seller later on if it doesn't appraise.
So why does it matter in Kenosha, Chad?
So appraisals matter not only in Kenosha but all over the country, because your house still has to appraise at the end of the day in order to close and get that loan. If the house doesn't appraise, you're not closing, you're not getting those keys, you're not getting that house. So appraisals are a very big step in the home buying process. If it doesn't appraise, you're not getting that home, Aalia.
I'm sad. And especially in the hot price, like homes that are under $300,000 for asking, often go over asking. So you want to make sure that home actually is worth that over asking price before you actually purchase it.
Right now in 2025, because the market is slowing just a little bit here right now in what are we in, June 2025, the market is, believe it or not, slowing just a tiny little bit because we're seeing more inventory on the market. We are starting to see a few seller concessions, so you can apply those seller concessions towards your down payment, towards your towards the appraisal gap, and towards other things like that if you need to. Just keep that in mind.
If you're planning to buy or sell a home in Kenosha, understanding the appraisal process could save you money and a lot of time. Call or text us at the below number 262-331-1621, or check out the links in the description. Chad and I are here to help you every step of the way. No pressure options.
Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the week. We can't wait to see you in the next video.
Stay bright, guys. To know what crazy. All right, before you make an offer on your dream home, you would need to know. God damn it. Okay. I'm Aalia Scott. I'm one of your local Kenosha realtors.
And I'm Chad Scott, your local Kenosha realtor as well. What?
Dude, before you can make that offer, which can break...
Which can make or break the deal.
Yeah, I know.
You gotta stop swearing too.
Sorry. You better not put this in the thing. Let's do do it again. I got this.